Welcome to the Awake Space. I'm Lori Rivers. I'm your astrologer, your metaphysician, and your coach on all things energetic, all things astrology. Well, that was a heck of a full moon, wasn't it? It was absolutely gorgeous in the sky. It's still full. It's still full for another day. It's still full. So some of you might still be releasing a little bit. Other people are letting stuff in. And there's no wrong way to do it. I had people get a hold of me on the live stream on TikTok last night and said, I was too emotional. I couldn't do a ritual. Guess what? Being that emotional was your ritual. There's a lot of misunderstandings about how to deal with the energies that ebb and flow on the cosmic tide, and because so many people have been indoctrinated in religions, it's easy to fear doing it wrong. Rituals, as per religious traditions, are made by humans. And what I see a lot of, which is kind of new, to be honest, what I see a lot of today is a lot of people thinking if they choose to leave an organized religion, that they have to take on a deity or worship something else. And instead of learning to deal with energy. And the two are vastly different things. I'm not saying that deities don't exist. But there's no reason you have to worship anything. And unpacking your belief systems is important. It's important because it isn't what you believe that matters, to be honest. It's knowing why. Why do you believe that? Do you believe that because you were taught to believe it? And there's a fear base there? Or do you believe it because it really resonates true with you? And there's a big difference. And I'm talking about belief because part of that full moon, right before it, the moon was conjunct Jupiter. And Jupiter was the planet of belief, and before Neptune was discovered in the 1800s. And belief is a really funny thing. Belief can be instilled when you look at what you learn in school or church or the synagogue or the mosque. And I'm not saying any of those places are bad, but we're taught, hey, here's what people believe, and this is what our people believe. And if you're part of our people, you believe these things. And not to believe these things means you're not part of our people. And it starts early. And so learning to know what you believe is true for you personally is a journey. It's a big journey. And that's kind of up on deck as we go forward, because as we hit crisis, and we are in crisis, ignoring the fact that the world is not in a collective crisis would be foolish. You turn to your beliefs. And it's really, really, really important as we move forward that you know what is yours. And that takes some contemplation. That takes some feeling into your body and knowing what your signal for truth is. And that's something I work with my clients, is understanding what is irrefutably true for them. Like I always say, I don't care what you believe. I just care that you know what you believe all the way through. I'm never here to evangelize. as far as what is the truth, because truth is an interesting thing. We have facts. We have very few facts, usually in the scientific realm where we can prove things for now. It's funny, sometimes that changes. But facts are often the truth as we understand it. And so your truth can change with time as your facts change, as you gain more understanding. It doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means you've gained a different level of understanding. I was very, very well churched as a child. And I was really, really lucky that my first experiences were very loving and very kind and very thoughtful. And when this very thinking little girl came up with a lot of questions, I didn't get in trouble. I had good people around me who were often taken aback by some of my questions, and I got a lot of, well, Lori, I've got to think about that for a minute, and instead of being told I was wrong. So I'm fortunate to some of the older people who had been in my life, and they are long gone. But later in life, I butted up against institutional beliefs in a much different way. I actually left the church at 17, rebuking an entire congregation. It was pretty dramatic and pretty funny. They wouldn't feed a homeless person. And so I let them know what I thought about that. Because in my world, when somebody asks for food and they don't have any and they're suffering, you give them food. But, that's just my beliefs. And so that's what we're going to talk about. What are your beliefs? Because they shape everything about your point of view in the world. The beliefs you have shape your idea of worthiness and deservedness. The beliefs you have shape your worldview about other people, and they shape your view about yourself. And if you're coming from a punitive standpoint, you end up thinking your guides are impatient, they don't care about you, or they're mad at you, or they're gone, or that you're being punished. And in my understanding of how the universe works, and I've had a lot of years to study that couldn't be further from the truth. So let's unpack some unhealthy dogma in this episode and look at how you can find the truth of being worthy. So let's talk about worthiness. Where do we see that in the astrology chart? Well, there's a couple of places. First of all, we look to the second house. The second house. The second house deals with self-worth, value, what's important to you, what you would collect if you were a collector, money, finances, real estate, income you attract into your own life by your own hand. It's how you gather your resources to you, and it shows us where in your youth you felt secure or where your insecurities began. Now, as a beginning astrologer, if you are new to this will be complex to unpack because you have to understand human development at a deeper level to start unpacking things. There's a lot of people out there who say, oh, this sign on the second house cusp means this, and this Venus means this, and you can't boil astrology down into little factoids. And it's about cyclical relationships, and it's a lot deeper than what most of us could cover in a TikTok video or a YouTube video. It takes a long time to be good at astrology, because it's about developing your consciousness. So I want you to listen to this with a very open mind and understand that it can be very, very complex. And I'm not gatekeeping, but I do want to remind you, that it takes a long time for this to kind of coalesce into an understanding. As a young woman, very used to conquering subjects easily, astrology confounded me, and it intrigued me because it took so long to put it together. So the second house is where we see your value, where your security and your insecurities. And almost every time something doesn't work out, it is because we are insecure. Sometimes it's because of bad timing too. But I know in my own experience, putting my value in the hands of another over and over and over again, because isn't that what we're trained to do? But they must like me, make them love me. I need that person to get me. Nobody gets me. I'm all alone. What would I do if I was alone? Oh no. And I say that sarcastically, but it didn't feel funny at all. It was terrifying because we've all been trained that being alone is the worst thing in the world. There's a big difference between being alone and lonely. I can guarantee you that. And you'd say, why are you talking about that? That's the seventh house. Yeah, it's not the seventh house. Seventh house is commitments. Love is the second house. It's our self-worth. And we will attract what we expect. And if we expect shit to hit the fan, shit hits the fan. And if we expect things to always be hard, they will always be hard. And if we expect to have everything be a challenge, it will always be a challenge. And if we expect good things to come, good things come. If we expect good people around, we will find good people. If we expect to do well in life, we do well in life. But we have to stop comparing ourselves to other people. We have to know what doing well in life means to us. So that second house tells us how we relate to the idea of security and how we feel insecure and when we do feel secure. So then we look to Venus, because Venus is the planet that naturally rules the second house. It doesn't necessarily rule your second house. It depends on the sign of the house and what's going on. And where Venus is, by house placement, by sign, tells us what we need, like breathing, what it is to make us feel connected, and what disconnects us from people, places, things, from ourselves. And that is why you keep hearing me say you've got to put your attention inwards. The more you put your focus outwards on other people, situations, circumstances, and this is a hard thing to do, to take your attention off of everybody else and put it on yourself. And I'm not telling you to be a selfish, greedy bastard. I'm telling you that you have to find your own value. That is what helps you get through challenging circumstances. There are people who thrive in challenging circumstances, and there are people who break in challenging circumstances. In fact, sometimes it doesn't take a pandemic to cause people to break. Sometimes it takes a lot less than that. We've never been in a global pandemic like this before. It's changing everything, and everything needed to change. So if you're going to make it through the next few years and innovate through these changes, knowing your worthiness is probably the biggest job you've got right now. Not knowing your worthiness puts you at a disadvantage. And it isn't that we don't reach out to others. It isn't that we don't look to other in life, but relying on other versus understanding your value puts you at a disadvantage. And I'm not telling you to be ruggedly individualistic at all. But if you need communication like breathing, you have to communicate to yourself first. And it's how you communicate to yourself that will spur the energy forward on how you are communicated to by other people. So if your interior monologue is very negative, good luck finding other people who speak well to you. It depends on what your Venus placement is, on what you need. But the more you give it to you, the more it comes to you. And I've learned that through life experience. I'm a big believer in having astrology be applicable. To me, it's not enough to intellectualize it. And I think that was kind of one of my problems with the professional astrological community, is it was a lot like in college where we learned a lot of theories, but it was all theoretical and assumed truths, but there wasn't a lot of application. And when I was becoming an astrologer in the 1990s, mundane astrology was very much out of fashion. They didn't like saying we could predict things because they were trying to legitimize us. I write about this in my Chiron guide, the Astro Guide to Chiron. Understand. We can predict likelihoods and outcomes, just like economists can predict likelihoods and outcomes, just like business analysts can predict likelihoods and outcomes, and just like political analysts can predict likelihoods and outcomes. Whether or not we're listened to is always another thing. And we do it by studying data. And you have to understand the data, which is in a chart. You have to understand the myriad of levels of expression of the energy to get it right. And that takes a lifetime of practice, just about. There's some things you can get right. It's pretty textbook. A lot of the predictions I give on TikTok are really textbook mundane astrology. I don't get into the more complex stuff there. And I probably won't, because it takes too long to explain how I got to it. But when it comes to understanding your value, you really want to get in touch with your Venus. That's your desire nature. And we've been taught our desire natures are wrong. And yet one of the reasons they're wrong isn't because wanting things is wrong. It's because we're wanting the wrong things. Money doesn't show your value. Money is the result of a successful process. Money itself isn't even bad. It's a tool. Money isn't the problem. It's the attitudes around it. It's an assigned value that we give things, and often we assign it too much value. And money doesn't solve problems either. It doesn't make it better. However, neither does being poor. And I have been in all positions. I've had more than I needed. I've had certainly not enough, and I have been very hungry. And I have had just enough. And I really like just enough. Just enough. I like not having to worry about things. So we have proven in the way our society works that there is a just enough amount, and a lot of people aren't there. But a lot of people have been trained that the only way you can make money is working for somebody else. That's not true. But then they try to start a business, and whoops, that doesn't work out. Why? Because you weren't trained how. You weren't trained in what is necessary to make a business function. And I'm not saying you have to go to business school, because frankly, really good business people often don't go to business school. But what they do learn is how to put systems together that help them flow. And they work on their mindset. That was something I had to do for a really long time, because I purposely disenfranchised myself. I've talked about that here on the podcast before. And so it's opening the blocks. It's opening your blocks, opening the idea that you can receive, and it's okay to receive, and people really do want what you have to offer. I really suggest you don't just make a product and expect people to buy it. That's kind of foolish. There's a mix of psychology and understanding of how people buy things and an understanding of how to communicate the value, and the market changes in how we discuss things, and today it's about being authentic, and people relate to other people, and being relatable is important, and we show that through our Venus and our Mercury, and we show how we best execute into action through our Mars. But we jump past Mercury and Venus all the time, and we head straight to Mars, and that's where everything falls apart, is jumping into Mars. And you need to get to the Venus. You need to get to that second house and understand how you feel secure. That's really important. Now, you can study astrology to find that out, or we can do a couple of things. And that's what I want to cover right now. You have to know when you feel most secure, and you have to know what secure feels like. And you have to know how to make that happen for you. What do you have inside of you? When I left my second marriage, I knew I would have nothing except my car and my computers. And honestly, all I needed enough money was for gas and food. And I knew I could restart if I just had my computers and my phone. That's what I needed, because I knew those were my skills. And I knew it might be hard for a little bit, but I knew I could get to okay. I wasn't really sure what better than okay looked like at that time. And I wasn't sure I was going to get to better than okay, which, by the way, I have, and it just keeps getting better. But in 2016, 2017, it didn't feel okay. It felt kind of scary. But I'd been scared before, and I knew I wouldn't be scared for long. I knew my value, even if I didn't believe other people saw it. And that was my belief. And that's what was holding me back, was that I knew I had a lot to offer and that nobody could understand me. Everything changed in the pandemic when people had time to think and feel through things and examine things. Everything changed, and people could hear me instead of a very small handful of people. And I wonder now, if I had believed that people could hear me, would it have been different? I don't know. It's a thought. It's not a very useful thought, though, because can't do anything about that. Funny enough, my Venus is in Gemini. It's in the 8th house. I felt unheard at the lower vibration. Whereas when I tap into my real self, my authentic self, my spiritual self, you guys all feel it, you see it. You guys knew when I was channeling the other night on my live. I didn't say I was channeling. I've never wanted to be one of those weird people, that I can do all the voice changings, face changing stuff, but I never wanted to, so I practiced so that people couldn't really tell when I channeled. Because I didn't want to be one of those people, one of those weirdos. I just wanted people to know they were loved and they have value. And you are, and you do. But you have to know it. I can tell you all day long how valuable you are, and if you can't find it for yourself, it doesn't matter. If you can't hear it, if you can't feel it, it doesn't matter if I say it. Moving forward into the next 4 months, it is going to be some challenging times. And in order for you to make it forward, finding your value is going to be the game changer. That exercise I gave in the last podcast episode All right, so we started with belief. We're at worthiness. Now let's put the two together. There is a lot of religious trauma out there, and regardless of what belief system you grew up with, all of the religions are man-made, human-made, and all of them have an influence. And in what I see in what so-called witchcraft today isn't necessarily witchcraft. It's like, I don't know what it is. It's not, it's interesting anyway. But things change, right? They change through other influences. And just like pagan influences came into Christianity and other Abrahamic religions, so too has evangelical beliefs now infiltrated what I call energy work, but other people call it witchcraft, paganism, polytheism, etc. That need to feel like you have a deity on your side because you're not big enough. Now, if you work with deities, that's cool. I'm not going to say don't do it. That may be exactly your calling. I just know in my experience, having been well-churched, gone to multiple denominations, I decided not to hedge my bets in my 20s. That was part of my Saturn return. My Saturn return, even though my Saturn is in the 6th house, it activated my 12th house too. And that's something you want to remember. When one house is activated, it does activate the polar opposite house. And so for me, it was a spiritual experience as much as it was a physical experience. I always call it my magical year, as hard as it was. There was just crazy stuff. I would have to write a fictional work to explain what happened that year because nobody would believe me. I didn't believe what was going on half the time. And I was really lucky that my counselor was a shaman because he was a licensed therapist, but he was also into shamanic practices. And so he wouldn't accept it when I would say, okay, that's it. I have completely lost my mind and we need to look at some like serious clinical stuff because this is nuts. And he would be like, no, I need you to go look up this phenomenon. It's a thing. So I owe him a whole lot. I became his astrologer eventually. It was kind of cool. It was a very magical year. What bothers me is people shying away from the difficulties in life. Difficulties in life do not make you less valuable. Everybody deals with difficulties, challenges, traumas. They don't make you less valuable. They don't make you damaged goods. It makes you human living life. No one said this life would be a cakewalk, an easy peasy joyride. Finding your joy in spite of the difficulties is the quest. Finding the love, finding the belonging. And you have to find belonging in yourself before you can ever find it anywhere else. You have to find peace within yourself before you can find it out in the world. I always feel a little weird anymore because when a quote-unquote disaster or tragedy happens, I might shed a tear. I might feel bad a little bit, but in general, I'm still in a very peaceful place. And that's because I fought really hard to be in this place and nothing disturbs my peace. That was the one thing I wanted during my Saturn return. I was like, I just want to feel peace. And I can look at what's going on in the world with a sense of detachment and understand that there will be better days and that it is a moment. It is a tragic moment, but it is a moment. And I don't know what other people's souls decided to do in this lifetime. I don't know what the pathway was for them. And that is where I operate with it. I've had a lot happen in my life that was unpleasant, that was downright painful. I've had my heart practically ripped out of my chest and fed to me on more than one occasion. It didn't make me less valuable. And in fact, when I've sat grieving relationships, whether it was because the person died or because it was unrequited love. I learned to say, my God, I'm so grateful I can love that deep that I can hurt in equal measure. That's what it is. You can love that deep, and that is value. It's not the hurt, it's the love. And you gotta love yourself as much as you love that person that went away. You gotta love yourself as much as you thought you did that relationship that didn't work out. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not even as broken as you think you are. I spent a lot of time thinking I was really, really broken. And if I had any regret, and I try not to have any, it would be that it took so long to heal. And the biggest reason it took so long to heal is because I was really dedicated to the idea of being broken, unfixable. Those beliefs are strong. And they came from, even though I grew up in a loving church, they came from the idea of original sin. They came from the idea of God favoring some over others. And even though I could logically think if it's an omnipotent being, why would they be that petty? I still had it to unpack in that 12th house of my subconscious and go back to my faith. To dump the belief and go back to the faith, because belief has dogma, it has reasons, it has assumed truths. But faith, oh my God, faith doesn't need a goddamn reason. It doesn't need a reason. Faith just is. And here we sit with the moon in Pisces right now and the sun in Virgo. And Virgo is just like, I just want the facts, man. And Pisces says, I just know. I just know. I just know. I just know. People say, how do you know? I just do. I don't need to back it up. I don't need to have a reason. That's where I want you to go. Go to your faith. And you'll say, I have no faith. I'm struggling. How could I have faith? Nothing's working out. That, my friends, is exactly the time to have it. And it isn't in a deity, although it could be. It's faith in you. It's faith in you. That you have a reason for being. And that you have work to do in the world. And if you've been putting it on physical things and titles and the opinions of other people, you're not putting your faith in you. I'm not saying to be a rugged individual, but have faith in your existence because it is glorious. And you may not believe me and you may think I'm full of shit, and that's okay. That is okay. But by God, I hope somebody gets it listening to this, because if just one of you understands what a miracle you are, what a miracle you are being on this planet, and how much good you can do in this world, well, I will have done my job. Learning that I was here for a reason, even though I always kind of knew it, but really knowing and now seeing the evidence. Do you guys know how long I walked with this information, trying to teach people, trying to get it out there? And yes, I've read thousands of charts, and yes, I've worked with people from all over the world, but I never could build an audience big enough in my mind to make a difference, and I gave up on it. By 2019, I thought, I don't know, maybe I really was delusional. No, I couldn't get anybody ready for 2020, and here it comes. Well, I got some people ready, but here it comes. And then 2020 came, and people were finally ready to listen. Who knew? Who knew? How crazy. Maybe it's because I was ready. I don't know. Maybe we're all ready. I don't know. But I spent an awful lot of time seeing no fruits from my labor. And it was frustrating. So I get that. How do I have faith? Well, you do. You just do. You just do. Surrender into the faith of knowing you're here and you matter. Because that's going to make the difference over the next few months. It's going to make all the difference. And please wear your masks and get vaccinated. Please. What bothers me most about the evangelical movement is how contrary it is to all of the teachings I grew up with, where God is love. I didn't grow up with the concept of an angry, petty God. I ran into it later, and it still had an influence on me. But, damn, some of that stuff, if I look at it too long, makes me sad. That's when I'm putting my eyes out there and not on me, not on my beliefs. Warring rhetoric is just going to cause more war. Anyway, find your value, find your worthiness, have faith in your existence. We've got stuff coming up in the next couple of days that's going to shake people's faith. So gather your faith in now while the moon is in Pisces, because it's going to make a difference. All right, we're going to do some Patreon shout-outs because, man, we're growing. I can't believe how much we're growing. It's crazy sauce. Just nuts. Wow, I am overjoyed and so moved by how many people are coming in. It's just absolutely incredible to me. Let's take a look here. This Patreon just keeps growing. It's nuts. It's nuts. It's exciting. We've got 247 patrons. How crazy is that? So we've got Christine, Emma Cook, Adam Bowers, Christina, Lizzie, Catherine, Allie, Oriana, Nicole, Neff, Barbara, Alanis, Leilani, Shane, Bryce, Cindy, Claire, Michelle, Adrian, Tara, Kate, Jenny Anderson, Stephanie, Eileen, Tatiana, Philip, Carol, Anna Carey, Nicole, Molly, Big Chimp, Cutie and an Outie, Shelby, Irene, Lexi, McKenna, Heather, Amanda, Janelle, Deanna, Joanne, April, Sarah, Francesca, CJ, Rihanna, Aaron, Christina, Taylor, Becca, Rita, Patia, Zach, Callahan, Julie, I always get this one wrong, Umi Nomado, Maureen, Victoria, Heather, Maisha, Samantha, Melissa, Amanda, Shannon, Rachel, Camille, Angel, Shade, Hannah, Shannon, Zahara, Rita, Patia, Zach. Oh, wait, I just skipped back down. But anyway, Heather, Maisha, Samantha, Brenda. And when we go back into Discord, which is hopping, let me tell you, we've got a bunch of new chat topics going on. We've got a bunch of threads, our text channels. We've got the Awakening chat, social off topic, Astro Classroom fun, astrology memes, which, oh my God, those memes crack me up. Sunday link up days. So every Sunday, if you've got something, whether it's your social media or a store or something, you can link up to that. We're preparing for what's to come. So we've got prep resources and links for supplies, introductions, pet astrology, astro crypto chat, news headlines, social action, and mutual aid. A lot of those are based off Patreon or patron requests for having text channels. This is a great group of people supporting and loving one another in very healthy and supportive ways. We got people going through it. You know, people are going through it. This is a big time of change. It's okay to ask for support. It's okay to give support as much as we can in as many ways we can. People are losing people. because of COVID, people are going through big life changes. People are trying to find out new ways of being and living in this changing and challenging time. And I am very proud of the community that is building there. And there is stuff coming on the app. So patrons will be supporting TikTok and this podcast. And then I will have a new membership on my website for astrology and spiritual pursuits, including business from a spiritual perspective, because it's hard when you are a spiritual person or creative person to be in business, because you vilify business and then only the jerks make money. And years ago, back in 2005, I asked the question, what if the good guys made money? And I, who had never owned a business, learned how so I could teach it. And so I've got some astrological correlations to business that I've studied since then in my own journey, and I can teach those to people as well. You don't have to be a great astrologer, because I'm going to map things out. So I'm super excited about all of that stuff that's coming up here in fall of 2021 to help people innovate their pathway. So let's talk about the astrology coming up. Now remember, I focus on lunar transits because lunar transits govern daily events. I know you all want to look at the big, sparkly, sexy, big planets, but guys, lunar transits, it's what governs daily events. So the moon is in Pisces now, and you know what that means? The moon ingresses into Aries on the 24th. Normally, this is a really great energetic time, but since 2008, every time the moon hits a cardinal sign, what happens? It dances with Pluto, and when the moon is in Aries, it is square to Pluto, which is explosive energy. So let's take a look at what's going to go on. Now, remember, I do the forecasts. Now, those forecasts will probably be moving over to the other platform, but if you're a patron, I don't want you to freak out. You will still have access to them. I'm working on the logistics of that. So let's take a look here. So on the 24th, I have to put it on the right date. I was looking into September. Here we go. August 24th. So August 24th, the moon will ingress into Aries. Let's see. Sometime in the afternoon, it looks like. Around noon Pacific time. Just before noon, the moon ingresses into Aries. And so initially, it's going to be kind of not a whole lot's going to happen. We've got just a little bit of inconjunct happening between the sun and the moon. So it's might be a day where, you might be a little frustrated on the 24th because energy levels are going to be kind of weird. By the way, the whining and the howling is my daughter's dog, Oda, who has been naughty. She's a mini Aussie miniature Australian Shepherd, and she has been sitting on the kitchen table. So she has now been put in timeout and is complaining about it. So pardon for the dog howling. We've got Mars still in trine to Uranus, so there's going to be a lot of weird stuff happening, and we saw it. I told you there was going to be a new labor movement. Well, we watched doctors walk out in South Florida. I've never seen that happen in my life, and that just shows you how bad the conditions are. We've got to get people paying attention to what's going on and paying attention to science. You could be spiritual and scientific at the same time. In fact, it used to be the way things were. It's unfortunate it got separated. Venus, of course, is in Libra, which means that later in the evening, which really 10 degrees, that's 20 hours. So on the 25th, because the moon really, it moves a degree every 2 hours. So it will be around 10 a.m., actually around 11, almost noon, 11, the moon will be opposed Venus. So we could see some financial things going on. People are going to be looking at their retirements. We might see pullouts out of retirements as people get nervous. You want to watch mutual funds, those kinds of things. This isn't trading advice. It's just my observations of what we'll see in the news. It really depends on where you're at and what's going on. And remember, I get out the forecast. Let's see, what else have we got happening? Mars is starting to trine Pluto. And this is going to be very, very interesting. We've got Mercury trine Pluto already. We are going to see the reactive people get more reactive. And we're going to see people who normally have level heads take action. And I think we'll see more action out of the health professionals, just more walkouts, to be honest, especially since Mars is in Virgo, Mercury is in Virgo, that rules healthcare. We're going to see some shakeups in healthcare. Our healthcare system is burdened. One, it's not very well set up to start with. Being privatized, it's set up for maximum profit. It's not set up for maximum care. And so we have staff overburdened and with lack of resources and an uncompliant group of people putting a burden further on it. And I know medical professionals are traumatized. And it is unfair to them. They didn't sign up for that crap. They get traumatized enough under regular circumstances. This is so much of a burden on them. So they're going to be speaking out and talking out more and more. So expect some stuff on that. What else have we got? Let's see. So, and then on the 26th, that's going to be the big day. The 26th at around noon Pacific time. Probably more around 10 o'clock, to be honest. 10 a.m. Pacific time, the moon squares off with Aries. This is going to be another explosive day. It's probably going to hit the labor markets, at least on the West Coast, when I look at this chart. Again, we may see a massive amount of people quitting their jobs and going freelance just because it's not worth being in traffic for ungodly amounts of hours, to be in an unsafe environment. We may hear more about working conditions in certain places. So keep your eyes out, but there's going to be, it's going to be explosive in some level. I don't see a ton of seismic activity, although there could be some. But we are in a changing time and a changing tide. So I will keep you apprised as I look more closely. This is my first glance kind of at this chart. So I'm just giving you my first thoughts. Aren't you lucky? Before I close out, I want to just tell you something that tickled the hell out of me. In my analytics for this podcast, I can see where listeners are from. And you have to understand, I have a Venus in Gemini and a Mars in Sag, and I love communications, and I love other cultures, and I love other countries, and my Sun and my Mercury are combust Kazemi in the 9th house. And so Faraway Places with Strange Sounding Names, that was one of my favorite songs as a kid, and I read the National Geographic magazine as if it was going out of style. I would sit in old people's houses where they had boxes of them, and I would just read through them, and I would say, oh my gosh, I want to go to this place and see this thing and eat this food and meet these people. And at 18, I took my one-way ticket out of the States and wasn't looking back. I didn't ever want to come back. I had to come back. That was my Saturn return. It ended up being for the best, but oh God, it felt like the world was ending. Just remember that. When you feel like your world is ending, it's really not ending. But it can sure feel like it. And I'm not making light of where I was at. It was really hard coming back, and things weren't fun, but it was magic. And you got to look at things through a different lens if you want to experience different things differently. How's that for vagueness? But anyway, I am out of my mind thrilled, and the list of countries is amazing. I took screenshots to send a friend of mine in Singapore, and I was like, dude, look at this. There's probably only one person from each one of these countries because, 90% of my listenership is from the United States. 4% is from Canada. 1% is Australia. Then we have 1% United Kingdom, Mexico, Portugal, Serbia, Croatia, New Zealand, Poland, Italy, Germany, Norway, France, Romania, Estonia, Indonesia, Chile. That's Oda getting in trouble. Netherlands, Hong Kong, Ireland, Sweden, Latvia, Spain, Turkey, Israel, Belgium, Bulgaria, Bahamas, Malta, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, Switzerland, Cyprus, Peru. And oh my gosh, that tickles me more than anything. That so many of you from around the world are listening to this. I just envision you somewhere quiet, listening either on headphones or late at night. And I think, oh my gosh, how cool is that? So thank you. My little self is just over the moon, the little girl who lived in National Geographic. Some of those countries didn't exist when I was a little girl. And some of those countries I couldn't even travel to because things were different in the late 80s and early 90s. I did end up in Romania once in 1993 on accident, and I got lost for 3 hours, but that's a whole nother story. Thank you for listening, and thank you for letting me be part of my purpose. And do keep finding your value. It doesn't take the whole world to be aware and conscious. It takes a good, committed, small group of people to make great change. And you are part of that. Thank you.